So yeah, session number 4. And how are you feeling?
Yeah, just that whole thing about this. Well, it was kind of dramatic after session 3, looking at my 2 feet and seeing the stark difference between the foot you'd worked on, like being like when I stand, it's a lot wider, and then the other one, and then with those bands, like real more noticeable.
Yeah.
On the left where you haven't worked on, so it's. But then with that, I guess because you know it looks like you're going to work on this foot now.
Yeah, that's my plan. Yeah.
So I think like that's going to be huge. Like just kind of like as you said, like balancing, and also that for getting kind of that first layer of tension.
Yeah.
I guess I'd be if I left today. I mean, before this, I'd almost be like kind of the left side would probably start having more problems than the right, possibly.
Yeah. Oh, I would definitely think so. I think we definitely brought your right side to be your better side now. And there was actually quite a, when we first diagnosed, there was quite a considerable difference. Like your right side was definitely at least 20% worse, and that's where you've had most of your problems, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm dominant left hand, left side.
Yeah, because you're left-handed.
Yeah, so it's interesting how that.
Yeah, how that happened. Oh. It's definitely been great having you here, and we've had some great talks and great spiritual talks, and
Yeah, it's been fun. Reconnection.
Absolutely. And anybody who's watching who's in Oregon, definitely catch up with his. I know it's probably a different YouTube episode, but catch up with his meditation classes there in Salem and Portland. Again, email us for more details, or I'll put some links in the description. I highly recommend. I've been really enjoying doing some meditation with Rock.
Oh shit.
Is it? You want me? So it's just quite rude, really. Spam calls.
I guess I should have known, but I didn't.
I know, I check often too, and it's like.
How far where do you fly out of? Do you fly into Gympie? Do they have an airport there?
So Brisbane is our closest airport, so it's a 2 hours drive from Brisbane to Gympie.
And how long of a flight from Brisbane to Sydney?
1 hour.
Oh,
yeah.
So nothing.
Yeah, it's 1,000 kilometers, so 600 miles, There is an airport at the Sunshine Coast, which if we're going domestic, they fly to Sydney and they fly to Melbourne.
How does the Sunshine Coast compare to the Gold Coast, like in terms of beauty and kind of?
Probably it's not quite as intense. I'd describe it as the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast has become very intense, and especially. Have you been there?
No, I've never been to Australia.
Okay, so the Gold Coast has become very expensive, very, very full on. Like the northern part of the Gold Coast Surfers Paradise is kind of like it's kind of like a very hedonistic place. People go there they're like when they finish high school. They call it Schoolies Week.
To got all the kids like kind of like the American
Get
version
drunk.
of spring break.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So party, 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 sex, sex, sex. Sex, sun, and surf is the Gold Coast, you know?
Yeah.
Sunshine Coast it still has that, but not to the same degree, you know? It's a bit more, there's a lot more rural properties there.
Is it less developed?
Yeah, but not by, it's still very developed, especially compared to where we are at the
A lot of
Ponds.
hotels and all that, like on the.
Not as much as the Gold Coast, but yeah, there's still plenty, you know. There's a lot of like, so it's quite a long, like the Sunshine Coast can take you like 30 to 40 minutes to drive from the northern part to the southern part. And so around the southern part, you got Caloundra, Maroochydore. They're a little bit closer to Brisbane. Maroochydore is probably the biggest part, the biggest like town or city within the Sunshine Coast.
So Sunshine Coast is where the closest beach to you?
No, the closest beach to us is Rainbow Beach. And Rainbow Beach is beautiful. It's a very small community. You know, it's like, I don't know, 4 blocks by 4 blocks of people that actually live there, maybe a bit more. And they've got this place called Carlos Sandblow, and it's like quite an interesting sand formation that gets, you know, affected by the winds. And people are allowed to drive their 4-wheel drives on the beach. So you just got to avoid that. But the surf's quite good. It's not too busy.
Did you ever surf like were
No.
you no, okay.
Body surfed a lot, but not surf. I got to Australia when I was 14, and a lot of people I knew were surfing already, and I just kind of never took it up, you know?
Yeah. Did you have like sports that you were really into?
So when I was in Canada, I was into floor hockey, liked that, you know, and but I was just learning to ice skate when we left. I was 8 years old when we left, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Then in Africa, we played soccer. Then we went to Miami and I played a bit of football and a bit of baseball. And then we moved to Australia. And then they were more into like rugby. And by the same time I got there, I just couldn't give a fuck anymore, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and it's more of a, more like into, well, I got there, I was into like partying, alcohol. What are you doing? Watches PBS Kids. Yeah, so it's but we're a little bit like where we are. It's definitely more. It's quite rural. You know, it's sort of more, you know, acreage properties and things like that.
So how far from your house to like those grocery stores? It's just like 10 minutes or something?
Yeah, 12 minutes, 10 minutes to the grocery store, 12 minutes to Gympie, which is a small city. You know, Gympie has like 2 health food shops, you know, 4 supermarkets, bank of all the major banks and mechanics, and you know what I mean. It's kind of like kind of got everything you need. Two big big hardware stores.
What is like 30,000 or something?
I think 30,000 in the town, and then another 20,000 in the surrounding areas that the town services.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like 50,000 people.
Yeah.
So that's not that small.
It's not that small. No, it's not. It's not a small. It's a small city, but it's not. Or it's too big to be a large country town. It's actually a small city. So, but there's no. It's not like there's no traffic jams in Gympie except when people are picking up their kids from school, kind of thing. But it's grown. It's one of the fastest growing regions now in Australia because it was quite affordable, and then a lot of people in COVID moved up from Sydney and Melbourne. Especially from Melbourne, everybody wanted to bail out of Melbourne because of the restrictions and the lockdowns and everything. So, whereas we didn't really have any of that in COVID. We just couldn't leave the state, but we never had to wear a mask or, you know.
Oh, you didn't?
No, for like 1 week they had it where if you went out you wore a mask, but for the rest of the 2 years we got paid like everybody's like, wasn't it tough in Australia? I'm like, Melbourne was tough. Queensland was like, yeah, we could go anywhere in the state. No, we didn't have COVID because they locked COVID out. Basically, they stopped COVID spreading, and so they paid us because they knew it was going to affect the businesses by locking it down. So we got paid like $4,000 a month or something.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And we paid off our mortgage and just gardened all the time. I'm like, you know, it wasn't that hard. Never had to wear a mask, you know. And then eventually they opened the border with New South Wales, and I think somebody brought COVID over from the States on an airplane to Sydney, and then it started to spread. But by that stage, people had either become vaccinated or, you know, they were ready for it. And then it spread, and then a bunch of, you know, mostly elderly people died, and, you know, it wasn't a high death toll in Australia. But Melbourne was quite different because it kept spreading there, and they kept locking down the whole population, and everybody just went fucking nuts, you know. And they, you know, there was a lot of conflict between the police and the citizens. They couldn't, you know, okay, sweetheart, but you know what? I'm doing something, so please don't keep doing this. Keep interrupting. I'm actually, you know, I'm like, you can play with. Don't come back and do that, please. Play with your toys if it doesn't work. That's what you should be doing anyway. Yeah, so yeah, we just had like it was a little bit hard. I mean, it was a bit isolating, if you know what I mean. It was like
Yeah,
because we were there, and Ephraim was born in the middle of the, you know, the pandemic, and you know, Corey's family couldn't come over from the States, and Ellie didn't really have any friends to play with, and you know.
Has her mom been over there?
Yeah, she came over there just before COVID with her sister, and we had a nice time. I think she came over twice before.
Has her brother been over?
No. And then after COVID, her mom came over as soon as she could get on the plane, basically, you know, as soon as they were allowing people to come in. Yeah, she likes it, but she feels it's a bit behind the times compared to, well, she's from LA, so, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly, you know, it's a little bit of a conservative town in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah.
There's almost like a line between the northern part of the Sunshine Coast and Gympie where the culture almost completely changes from what I call modern Australia to old Australia, and Gympie's on the other side of the line. So it's because it's actually an older city. It was founded in like the 1860s, I think, you know. Whereas the Sunshine Coast was all just bushland and a few beaches, but there wasn't anything much happening then. And so Gympie's older, and it's got a lot more old established families, and you know, the way people doing things tends to be a lot more like conservative voting and stuff like that, you know.
Is there like a wealthy section of Gympie?
Yeah, it's kind of like here where you've got old wealth, you know, that's been transferred from families.
Yeah.
The property market's like doubled or tripled in the last few years. Because people are wanting, you know, it was like half the price to buy a house in Gympie as it was in the Sunshine Coast, which is why, you know, the initial thing of why we bought up there. We just wanted to, I didn't want to pay top dollar for stuff, you know. That stage of my life, I was kind of like, didn't feel like the stress, you know. I'd already gone through quite a lot of stress then. But we're overall, because we put a lot of work into the property, 9.5 years or something, and it's become beautiful. Creating a food forest, 4 or 5 major gardens, and like nice swimming pool.
Was the swimming pool already there, or did you build it?
We built it. I mean, we hired somebody to build it. Dug a big hole in the ground and brought in the pool and put it in. I think the main thing there, it's just more like, it's kind of like, it's just our nuclear family, you know? And we have a few friends that we catch up with from time to time, which is nice. Do some meditation and that sort of thing. Whereas St. Louis is quite different, living in the suburbs, and you go for a walk and the kids can play with the neighbors, and
Yeah.
museums and gardens, and not that much to do around Gympie, although, like I say, Rainbow Beach is only an hour away. Beach-wise, of course, it's gonna
And the
be-
water's pretty comfortable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there'd only be a couple months a year. I mean, it's like, people do, like, in Sydney, which is like 1,200 kilometers south, they'll even swim in the winter, but it's more like, you know, like a bit of a feat, you know, and like, oh, it's cold, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But up where we are, it's like, it's not that cold, even in the winter. It's like a little bit cold, you know? The summer is beautiful. Autumn. Probably 9 or 10 months of the year, it's quite nice to swim, you know? My swimming pool, I swim in for like 8 or 9 months. I swim in the winter sometimes, but it's too cold for the kids. But, I mean, a winter's day would probably be 75 Fahrenheit, you know?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And the winter's nights occasionally would get down to like maybe 35, but most nights are like probably 45, 50 kind of thing,
Hmm.
you know. And then summer's quite a lot warmer than that. Best times of year there are spring and autumn. Although for fruit, it's summer. And the summer, of course, is reversed to here. So the winter here is quite harsh, you know, like a lot of days it's just cold and icy and, you know. So January, February, we were back in Australia. Which then is their hot, rainy season. So I'm just gardening all day, you know. Not all day, but like in the morning and the afternoon. There's nothing like eating fruit that you've grown, you know, it's like incredible. Like I got some, when I get back there, all the grapefruits will be ready, hopefully. And I just wished I had a chance to eat that as jackfruits. They were huge. They looked incredible. It's like, can we change that flight so we can eat jackfruit?
Uh-huh.